a challenging experience of managing state economies that are totally dependent on accrual from the federation account, rather than exploring the viable alternative to run the economy. For most of the states, internally generated revenue are nothing to write home about.
On the part of the federal government, he says there will be complete transparency in the handling of the federation account. All states will be treated fairly and equitably, irrespective of party affiliations, and that the federal government will play its role in support of the states as often as necessary and within its means.
Your Excellencies, the challenges that confront us in the next few years, especially in the areas of human capacity development, notably education, healthcare, and jobs for our young people, are monumental and they are historic. But we are more than able to surmount them. To do so, all the states of this federation and the federal government must see ourselves as one government. Our people in every state want the same things and they suffer the same deprivations. And frankly, they don't really care who puts food on the table. Just put the food on the table.
We'll run a government of the people, for the people, and by the people. So in everything we do, we try to build a consensus.
The Buhari administration, he explains, will remain committed to providing infrastructure and security, recruiting more men and women into all security agencies and improving their capabilities to maintain law and order.
I must have made many mistakes. I will take the necessary steps to correct them. Most of the mistakes are around personnel selection. Getting people appointed into positions and trusting them to do their job, and they don't do it as well as you think.
Well, it's all about service, and the Vice President has reiterated this, calling on the returning and elected governors to focus more on the development of the people.
Councillor, it's quite strange when a governor accepts that he has made mistakes in the past and, of course, intends to correct such mistakes. So we also know that that should go for many other governors and those who have been in positions of authority in the past 4 years. Now, joining us to discuss the topic this morning, we have the chairman, Partners for Electoral Reforms, Ezenwa Mwago. Thank you for coming, as always.
Thank you. Good morning.
All right. And, of course, we have Dr. Chris Akoma. He's the former Deputy Governor of Abuja State. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you.
All right.
All right. Gentlemen, let's begin. Kira, you were saying just now that it's strange. Some persons would ask what is strange about an admission.
People don't easily admit.
Well, that's right. But experience is the best teacher, exactly. As one of the governors also said from the clip that we saw a while ago. But let's begin with His Excellency, the former Deputy Governor of Abia State, Dr. Chris Akoma. In a sense, the orientation and workshop programs that we saw for the re-elected and the incoming governors is virtually in sync with some of the issues that we had discussed on Good Morning Nigeria. Yes. With regard to, listen, what do you need to do once you get into office? What are the things that should be of priority attention to you, and so on and so forth. But today we are, of course, taking lessons from that orientation and workshop and then getting into the real essence of good governance. But in terms of having a gathering of this nature, the banquet hall, old banquet hall of the presidential villa, what kind of feel does it create, for the participants? Because quite a number of former governors were also there as resource persons, along, of course, with those who are in situ.
Thank you, Councillor. When I followed the orientation, I was quite happy that was happening. We just had the legislature, the legislatures did theirs at the national level of returning and fresh newly elected, members. And this of the governors is good. And the feeling will be, for me, one, it takes them away, first, from that mentality of their locality, the state box, talking about their various states. And it's a good start for them to begin to see and know the importance of peer review, because our peer review mechanism of state governance in Nigeria is weak. It is important to improve on that. So for me, that was a very good opportunity for them to now begin to know and see things. And more so, the organizers did a good job. A good job of it in the sense that the development partners that were brought in, those that, talking about experience, former governors and others, who came to share their experiences. The development partners coming to say, these are the things we can do with you. These are the areas we can partner with you. Many of them may know or may not know or may not have a full grasp of all this. So that was another good thing. And for the third thing for me was bringing all of them into that banquet hall in the villa was like saying, hey, gentlemen, the elections are over. We have finished with party and personal issues. It's time for serious business. You have to be ready to govern. And in governing, what the people want is what your focus should be, something that will elevate. And as we sit together and listen, think of what you can learn from each other. And I think that was a good start. So it's good. During our time, there was something we did, and I think after this, they should go and do that now, because each governor had elected or returning governor must have presented a manifesto or a program of what he or she wants to do for the people. Now that they have this holistic view of the national situation, of what happens in other states, it is time for them to go back. We had retreats, like in my state when we had a retreat. We took it away from our own state to somewhere quiet. We went to Calabar, looking at our manifestos, vis-a-vis those that were appointed as commissioners and various people, and what has to be done now in order to achieve that. I think now that this has happened at the national level, they should now take this experience, go back home, put it side by side what they had planned, and look at it at a kind of retreat to see where they can adjust. Especially, there was a focus on internally generated revenue and the issues of multi or double, taxations and all that. So this, because like was said during that if you have the best of programs and you don't have the funding, or you cannot or have not developed the mechanism of how best to fund it without belaboring the people excessively, then you've not achieved something. So I think it's a good thing that this has happened, and it's part of what we've been saying, that the democratic system is a self-purifying system. As we go along, we learn, we come up with ideas and situations and systems that will help us improve. I think this is a step forward in that direction, and I commend it.
Now, it's well said, and Nigerians also know that the governors have a governors forum, which is also an avenue, through which they cross-fertilize ideas, in terms of governance. But let's turn to Ezenwa Nwago. We've had a similar orientation in the past, in which some governors who were returned after this election, participated. Do you think that this kind of orientation has a way of impacting on the people being governed? Yes, we have the governors or the governors-elect, who are coming for the very first time. It's not as if they are not at the corridors of power, before the election. Now, what impact do you think that this orientation will have, going forward?
Well, I seem to agree with His Excellency that, well, it's commendable, but I just worry that the value of that may fall into our attitude to rituals. Okay, so you elect a governor, you bring him to a retreat and all of that. But the bigger question really has not generally been the absence of the issues that are being raised. In terms of preparation for governance, most of these folks understand these issues. What we're dealing with is arrogance of power. You see, when you have governors who see themselves as czars, who see themselves, when you put up that team and the guy feels, look, I'm here, I'm in charge. Even the deputy governor has no value in terms of what you contribute to me. So we need to deal with that first and foremost, demystifying power. And that is not happening in our country. When in the States, there are no challenges. All the structures that regulate governance are ambushed by these people. And when they ambush them, you no longer can have these initiatives that you have seen. I see they are ticked, they are boxes. You know, we ticked it, we went for a retreat, we gathered everybody. And then suddenly you hear the man say, look, I'm in charge. What do you want to tell me? So for me is to say, look, what are the critical issues that we need to deal with as a people? What are the arguments for state creation? When people argue for states to be created, what are the things they put on the table? One of the most important things is sustainability. We have ability to take care of ourselves. We were in the national conference in 2014, and there were over 100 agitations for more states to be created. What were they saying? We have what it takes internally to survive as a state. Just give us our state rule. And then it is true also. So you have the attitude of what the Deputy Senate President calls the feeding bottle federalism, where people just think that come to the center, get the resources, deal with it the way you want, get more loans, you know, and there are no checks. Civil structures within the states are completely anesthetized, okay? The state legislature that should ordinarily regulate the executive see themselves as a department of the State House. Those are issues. Then even professional associations the political party that should play a role, the chairman of the political parties have been ambushed by state executives. They see themselves more as personal assistants to the governor rather than the ones that will advise. So the conversation about this retreat needs to go beyond gathering together in the banquet hall, bringing people who themselves are problems. The bigger challenge in Nigeria is that the problems pose as solutions. If you want to have this kind of engagement, you need to bring people who can show a mirror, who can show a clear mirror of where we are. If we have done it, this is not the first time. Ministers have retreat. By the time we appoint ministers, they are going to be ministerial retreat. President Obasanjo did it. Every governor does retreat after this. Not only that, they also bring partners, donor partners to assist, the EU, UNDP. All of this play within those states. But the bigger challenge for me is the attitude of people to governance, that arrogance, that lack of understanding that is a democracy and that these checks needs to be allowed to flow without hindrance.
I'd like to stay with you. I wasn't privy to the details of the program for the orientation and workshop. So whether aspects of this were dealt with, that's to say power relations at the state level or at the subnational level. But they had a number of resource persons, according to the various reports that we read, and that we also saw, a number of resource persons from diverse backgrounds, which is why I want to take you back to one of the points that Dr. Akoma has made, that from what we are seeing, despite the points that you have made fast forward, what the orientation and workshop would appear to represent is to eject the persons who have been elected from the election mode and then get them, to begin to attune themselves to the governance mode. Do you agree with that? And if so, what else needs to be done?
Yeah, I made the point that there is value. There is absolutely no doubt, and I think Dr. Akoma made that very, concrete, clearly, that there is value in in the engagement, but that it should not be lost in, ceremony. And that is important. So there are things that are learned. My point is that we always, it's not new. There is nothing novel about what has been done. And that's what I'm saying. Yes, value can come out of this if the attitude is different. If people can understand, for instance, that they should allow the structures that have been put in place to make democracy valuable for the people to function. That's the point that I'm making. So what needs to happen is that, yes, we need to have our the House of Assemblies in the states function truly as an arm of government that has responsibility to, check the executive and not see themselves as an appendage. And this hijack and ambush of these structures is something that not just the citizens themselves will need to play up. If you go to the states, there are no challenge to the activities of a governor, and none is exempted. That's the real issue. They organize local government elections. They award themselves 99%. And Kingsley, if you remember, I've kept talking about the clash of election culture. If subnational governments cannot show example of how choices can be respected, the people will not learn that from any other place. So one of the things is that what are we going to do with allowing local governments to function in an autonomous? Those are some of the conversations that I think we need to take place.
Two important points that you have also raised, but we'll pause them, those points, and then return to His Excellency Dr. Chris Akumas. Dr. Akumas, now, not looking at the ritualistic essence of faith, but borrowing from the oftentimes tense power relations that you have at the subnational level, the testy relationships between governors and their deputies. Would an orientation or a workshop also for deputy governors be out of place? I think I saw the wives of governors, also getting that. In terms of protocols, it's particularly crucial to get them because, wives also support their governors. You have all kinds of programs and so on and so forth. But for deputy governors, in seeking to manage, as we have said, the often testy relationship with the governors. So look, how do you cope?
Thank you. You see, he mentioned the Governors Forum. As him or you, somebody mentioned that as an avenue for cross-fertilization of ideas. I think the issue of cross-fertilization of ideas has become part of it. Initially, it was just a pressure group kind of thing to get what the governors felt the federal government or the national government was not. So it was more on that. But now you can see that as we move on, things are beginning to develop. People are beginning to understand better and the need to use these structures for the betterment of our national growth and vis-a-vis the states. There's also a forum of former deputy governors. Where I want to clear that is because of the point you made. Yeah. When we were forming this, when this was being formed, there was a resistance to have a deputy governors forum because that there will be clash. So what we had to do was to form forum of former deputy governors, which also houses deputy governors, and then sees and takes the serving deputy governors as associate members in order to avoid anybody thinking that the purpose is to fight them. And the deputy governors do their own thing too. This is governance. It has to be a teamwork. The team must play together if they want to win. If you must win, the team must operate together. They must play together. Yes, to your question, it will be necessary to have also an orientation for both those returning and the newly elected deputy governors, and their wives talking about protocols, and the people sharing experiences too on how best they can relate. People like us can also tell them, most times these issues you see happening between deputy governors and the governors don't even have to, it doesn't start with them. They may not be privy to it or have anything, both the governor and the deputy governor. External forces play the game and they come in between. I can tell you that for free, and I stand to be challenged any day. A book is going to be presented soon. Most deputy governors work well with their governors. But what happens is, as we move on, interest and people play in, key in, and that is where the point you raised now, is important. So if there will be an orientation for them, at least to look at the issues. I, for one, I will not. You remain loyal, supportive, and all that. But any deputy governor, whether serving or former, that decides to be docile instead of advising the governor properly, is not doing both the governor, himself, his family, and the state or the nation any good. It's always better to stand on the path of truth, but, be polite, be diplomatic on how you do it. And any governor that wants a deputy governor, a yes-man deputy governor, is not ready. Because if you have a yes-man deputy governor, the value that he should bring, the purpose of having somebody that works with you is gone. Look at the way our president and vice president have been working. And we get the value for that. So the issue here, following what one would say is this. Why is it that at the national level, at least there is reasonable level of checks and balances, demarcation of powers, the judiciary, the legislature, the executive? Why is it at the state level that, we have more of emperors than governors? How many governors will come and do what Governor El-Rufai did now? That's why he said it's strange. It's not that it's strange to admit mistakes, but that arrogance that he referred to. And that was why I said it was good to take them away from that box. When they are in the state, or when people visualize and see only the state, their vision is only that. They don't think, they see themselves as the world champion without looking at what happens in other places. What you think is big in your place might be nothing in another place. So bringing them together exposes them to that. My father told me that a man who never had hope of owning a goat, of owning a fowl, if that man gets a goat, for him, he has an elephant. So the way he will move, the way he will walk, the way...
Perception.
Oh, God, it will be a different thing. So that was why I said the orientation at this level is good, and there is need to go further. Take what you have learned here, what you have seen happening in other states, go back home, have a retreat, look at what you planned and what you thought was good enough for your state, vis-a-vis what you have seen now, whether it's good and whether it's implementable. And furthermore, for both the governors, the deputy governors, the legislators in the state, it is absolutely important for us to begin to respect each other. This funding issue that is the key problem in the state is something that must be looked into. There are efforts to have bills, laws granting autonomy for this and that. People were celebrating the issue of autonomy for the judiciary at the state level and all that. How effective, how the implementation is done is another thing. So until we get all these things done, we will still continue to have this problem. But someone who wants to leave a mark an indelible mark and his name in good. We work with people knowing that a tree cannot make a forest.
Well, gentlemen, Dr. Akomas has already put it well, and having been one time a deputy governor, we can also recall the fact that some deputy governors lost their positions, at one time or the other, not just in Nigeria State, but in other states of this country. So that cohesion, between the governor and deputy has always been lacking, in our system. But now, back to the issue of orientation and workshops for the governors-elect and those who have been returned to power. Now, think of this. Before you even venture into vying for the governorship position of your state, of course you have a manifesto, you have a vision, you have a mission. These are all developmental in outlook. Now, assembling them, of course, sharing ideas and all of that is a plus. But there's one critical issue, that Mwagu raised, which has to do with the arrogance of power. And after the orientation, what next? And there are principles that shape good governance, talking about rule of law, transparency in the process, and what have you. When a governor becomes an emperor, and definitely, in our polity, it's been there over the years, and there has been no serious attempts to address the issue, because governors are the alter ego in their states. I want to bring in Mwagu here. Looking at this orientation and the outlook, you have already made comments on that. But moving forward, when the governors retire to their states for proper governance, what do you expect from them?
The question is whether they actually do retire to their states. In most cases, they live in the federal capital. 90% of the time that they govern those states, you see them more in the government lodge that you have here. So, you see, there are things that we need to deal with. What is our attitude to Section 308, the immunity clause? What does it do to people when they are in power? When you know that there are no consequences for whatever you do, you can't even be, you can't even be sanctioned in reality. Yes, impeachment clause and all of that, but you have these other. So we have instruments that have already become impetus for the arrogance that I talk about. So in dealing with these issues, we need to engage those issues. In certain countries, people who are contesting elections, including presidents, are saying, look, take out this immunity clause, Section 308. What is our attitude to the fundamental principles of state directive that we have, Chapter 2 of our Constitution? Who is looking at it? Where it is expressly clear that government exists for the benefit and welfare of the citizens, and that you have to provide education from primary to university level, and then we put it there and say, you can practice this when able. Well, we can, as a people, begin to aspire to those things. And one of the ways to do that is to take out the wastages that we see. There is just no argument that can support a governor who is not paying salaries, who is telling workers that he has no resources to pay salaries, but he has private jets waiting for him at every instance that he's traveling out. The cost of that is important. We've seen governors who sit in the general lounge at airports. It did not diminish them. It didn't take away anything from them. I've seen governors who walk into, the airport, wait for the normal flight. There is business class in those flights, and they are recognized for that. But 90% of the time now, if you go to airports in the country, you see private jets packed exclusively for our governors. Did the retreat deal with those issues of wastages? Did the retreat deal with issues of transparency in terms of even being accountable for this thing you call security vote? When we put a lump sum and give it to somebody and say, look, spend it the way you like, and find excuses for how you spend it,
and you don't retire it.
And you don't retire it. These are issues that we need to talk about. How do we deal with the fact that you cannot get the budget of majority of your states on the internet? You can't just go there now and say, I want to see the budget of Abia, for instance. And you click and you see, and that is difficult. In the federal budget is available. We are holding NAS. We are saying open NAS. Open NAS. NAS is walking around, at least giving you their budget, even if they don't give you the breakdown. But at least we've pushed them to a point where they are able to put their... But the states are not accountable to the citizens. There is a House of Representatives member who went to renovate hospital in his state. And the people got hold of the budget and found out that it was not renovation. It was to build, to build a new hospital, not renovation. They went to him and said, look, you are not renovating. What you have here is... And they found out that the money has also been released. So there is knowledge about it. So it's not just empty. The states, citizens in the states have no opportunity to even track the budget of their state. In most states, for instance, contracts are awarded without due process, no procurement law, nothing guiding anybody. So these issues will have to... That's why I'm telling you that if you go to that retreat, you see, if you go to a place, I think it's my people who say if you come to a place and you all come out smiling, you've not told yourself the truth. There needs to be, from even listening to Dr. Akoma, people who can say, look, there were places we didn't do things right. And for you now, the society is improving, people are getting more aware, you are not going to get away with it.
Yeah, but the point you raised about the imperial disposition of governance is to buttress the fact that that disposition might and could be an impediment to good governance.
Absolutely, that's the point that I'm making.
All right. How might these imperial powers be shared or be made to be in tune with the constitutional provisions which do not admit of the imperial status that we now have at the subnational level?
So most of the time, the people going to the state assembly, their forms are bought by the governors. Sometimes the cost of even running those elections are defrayed by state resources. Okay? So in most parties, you find out that the governors ambush the forms and decide who to give it to. So from the beginning, the whole leadership recruitment process is skewed in a way that does not allow for independent thinking and engagement. So we need to deal with that, meaning that the cost of running elections will be such that self-respecting people who work hard and earn a living can aspire to political office. And people who have a second address, people who their career is not politics, okay, who does not owe this to grandfather. I mean, what do you call them now? Godfathers. So when you have godfathers, whether as governors or as some patron or baron somewhere who determines who goes to where, you are not likely going to have people who can say, look, I am here on my own merit. The people who elected me, I am here to represent an interest. So I think coming from there is very, very important. Then we need to strengthen civil actions in the states. Civil action meaning that the NUJ in the states should not be thinking of getting bosses, bosses from the governor, and then donated by, and then for every state dinner, you are a permanent member of, the state dinner. You don't see yourself as somebody who is there to hold government accountable. We need to begin to have civil society groups that also do not give awards, that their penchant will not just be awards to, awards to people who are owing salary. Somebody is owing salary, you are giving him an award. Somebody is alleged to be corrupt, you see professional associations, including labor, going to say, oh, this is the best performing governor. So the reality is that the institutions of civil space that should be autonomous and engage have been so held captive by, first and foremost, this inclusion. Because it's inclusion. Include everybody, and then there are no people who can...
You carry everybody along.
Competition.
You carry everybody along. Okay, gentlemen, all these boil down to the issue of scarce resources. The simplest definition of politics is the authoritative allocation of scarce resources. That is where the problem is in this context. Now, there is this sharing formula that's eating into the fabrics of our national life and has already been cascaded cascaded that down to the states and, of course, local government levels. Everything is about sharing. Political offices is about sharing. If you talk about a distribution of development projects, it's about sharing. Is there no longer a meritocratic approach to governance at all? I'd like Dr. Comas to come in here because, of course, he has a tested power as a deputy governor.
Thank you. I will come to that, the point you just raised. But I want to comment on a few points that my brother here talked about. You see, when the saying goes that people get the kind of leadership they deserve, it goes to say that somebody somewhere is not taking responsibility. Someone may have abdicated his own responsibility. The followership is also important. He just, made a point that a legislator, went renovating a hospital instead of building, but the people accosted him because they found out that it was for building a new hospital and the money released. It means someone took responsibility, considered it important to have that, having the knowledge, to also have the courage to bring it up. In most cases, I just came back from an Easter meeting from my community, and one young man came, listed projects, which he said he found out was announced to have been done, that have not been done, that the, development union should take it up. These are things that we should be doing. Talking about state budgets, of course, every year there is an appropriation at the state level. People defend it, it's presented, the governor presents it. How thorough and how the depth of that budget is a different thing. But there is always a budget. Again, the allocation, federation account allocation that goes to the states is public. So the awareness is growing. As people continue to ask questions, somebody somewhere will have to sit up. If the people were not asking questions as to what happens within the National Assembly and their remunerations and all that, what you are talking about now that has come to play probably wouldn't have come to play. So we also, as citizens, we owe ourselves the responsibility not only to follow up, but to also speak, to have the courage to ask questions. Not when people, and not those that we ask only as a bargaining chip. Because there are people who make noise as a bargaining chip. What they want is to get that, what did it that Fayoshe called it stomach infrastructure. Okay? And once they have something, they forget. They drop everything. And so the issue of the faulty recruitment process has been there. I have said it on, Good Morning Nigeria a number of times, that these are part of our problems. But again, what happens when most of us that think that we have second address, that we can make our, is so scared of getting into the contest? Life is a risk. If you don't contest, how would people, vote? How would the opportunities come? So, and that is why things continue to play the way it is going. But when more people, yes, you take the trouble, sometimes you are seriously bruised, sometimes you break legs, hands, and I know what I'm talking about, breaking legs. It's not physical break. You have all these problems. But those good people, those that see them, that knows something, that can offer something, must continue to press forward. We must come into this process so that things can happen. Now, authoritarian allocation of resources. Authoritative allocation of resources. What is governance about? What is political positions about? We have all agreed to hand over our commonwealth and resources for somebody to superintend over and to direct how it will go. And I think where we have major problem is that this issue of impeachment and process of checkmating these things is not being properly applied. It is applied only to those that cannot pay for the nebulous misconduct. That is another thing that has to be properly, defined. And it says in the Constitution, whatever the House of Assembly or the legislature calls misconduct is misconduct. So if you did not greet somebody and someone pays for you to be impeached, they just put misconduct. It's misconduct. So the issue here is that to allocate resources, people must begin to look at themselves as being here today and that tomorrow they won't be there. You talked about immunity. It's important that I make this point.
Just in a few seconds.
The impunity and all that is there. But people should also know that they will answer even after. There are evidences and experiences of people that have had to answer after serving. So that will also kick in. But they will not answer if the people don't ask for it.
Absolutely. Well, all right. Dr. Chris Akumas, former Deputy Governor of Abia State, and Emeka Ezenwa Nwangu, who's a regular guest on Good Morning Nigeria. We are being joined now by another guest via Skype. He's joining us from Kano, and is the Executive Governor of Kano State, Dr. Umar Abdullahi Ganduje. We've been struggling to get the Skype connection through since, so we didn't want to announce that he will be joining us if we're not quite certain of the connection. Well, we understand we've lost again the connection. Well, if our engineers can work that out and he comes on, then of course we'll have the benefit of him responding to the issues arising from orientation for elected and re-elected governors that took place earlier this week in Abuja. Now, we understand we've lost the signals, but just a point that I would like, I'm sure if we're able to get Governor Ganduje of Kano, that's a question we'll also pose to him. But Dr. Chris Akumas, you were already on that before we signaled to you that we're going to go over to the Skype connection. There is this common saying that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. For a governor, or a deputy governor who is in office for no more than 8 years, how tempting is power as to become an agency or to become rather a source of corruption, that we're having this imperious disposition as if, office will not come to an end one day, or indeed life will not come to an end one day?
It's not even the length of time. There is a saying that if you want to really know the true character of a man or a person, give that person power or let the person have some money. And in Nigeria, when people get into political power and position, the two comes together, both the power and the money. So naturally, unless one is well-schooled, well-trained, with fine background, the person will think this is it, the world has. So it's important for us to know.
All right. Well, Dr. Akumas, we're going to pause you again, but we'll return to that subject matter. You talked about the conjunction of power, influence, and money in the hands of a single individual for whatever length of time. Now, we understand that the Skype connection is back, and we do hope that it will be stable in the course of this conversation. Your Excellency, Dr. Ganduje, Governor of Kano State, of course, we are discussing the orientation and workshop programs held for re-elected and governors-elect on the auspices of the Nigerian Governors Forum. You were present at the event. What are your takeaways?
And good morning. Thank you for this very important program. Yes, we were invited by the Nigerian Governors Forum. We were in Abuja, and a number of issues were discussed, especially the transition issue. So we found that it is really important for us to develop transition programs by having a transition committee, which we have already done that, and that will be able to assess the situation in various ministries, departments, and agencies in order to see where we are going, and see the gaps that are existing. Also, by having a transition committee, you will be able to know the capacity of the appointment that you want to make, the capacity of people, the inclusiveness of the appointments, the geographical spread of the appointment, and also you will be able to set priorities on what you want to do, considering what has happened in the last 4 years. Then how do you move forward? What are the priorities and what are the timelines? And eventually you see how you can move the state forward depending on the various developmental challenges that the state is facing. So really we have learned a lot from various speakers, professionals, even in the security aspect and other things. So it's something that should be maintained.
Your Excellency, Governor Ganduje, you've been a governor for the past 4 years. Yeah. Re-elected, as the governor of Kano State. Now, in that forum, which of course the just elected governors attended, and we have agreed here in the course of our conversation shortly before we came on that the group cross-fertilized ideas on moving forward in terms of governance. And I want to ask you this. Now, after this orientation, is there anything you'd like to do differently from what you did in the last 4 years, taking cognizance of the fact that, of course, Kano is a very big state, and, of course, you need to, of course, ensure that more developmental projects will reach all the nooks and crannies of Kano State?
Certainly, we must do something different because of our experience for the last 4 years. For example, Kano is the most populous state in the federation, and by implication, we have the highest number of school children. We have the highest number of out-of-school children. So we have to give education a top priority and get our data correct so that we plan very well. We have to look into the issue of affordability, the issue of accessibility, the issue of quality. And we have to give that a priority, especially considering the gaps that are existing in terms of infrastructural facilities. And also, we have to give the issue of health a priority if we want to make the human development aspect of governance very, very important. Therefore, we have to examine the issue of primary health care, the issue of secondary health care, the tertiary health care, and to see about how we can improve our health facilities, how we can improve on already the policies that we have made in pertaining to the contributory health scheme, that is the workers, the civil servants, and also to see how we can improve on the health trust fund in order to get finances for our various health facilities. And of course, for the socio-economic development of the state, we have to give agriculture a priority. And that one too is very important because we have identified the gaps. Mechanization of agriculture is a big challenge. So during the last 4 years, we have identified this gap and we have to face it squarely. Also, in order to make agriculture a profitable venture, we have to go closer with the farmers and also connect them with those who process the produce, and to see how the farmers can reduce the cost of production. Also, Kano being a populous state, the issue of unemployment is very, very important to us to examine. Therefore, we have come up with the various programs establishing, a skill acquisition center, which we have completed, and very soon we shall commissioned that center is a multi-billion naira skill acquisition center. And that center has been built as a result of investigations that we have done, the manpower gap in Kano State. So I believe this center will be able to bridge the gap, especially those graduate and will be able to come with skills so that they can be employed. Also, the issue of women empowerment. We have to integrate our women, into the system, because without integrating women, participating in the socio-economic development, we are leaving them behind, and then that one will not be complete when we want to move forward. So many other things that we have to consider, especially the recruitment of those people who will assist us in managing the government. That one we have to adopt a new strategies. We have to find out the capacity of the people. We have to find out the knowledge of the people. We have to find out the geographical spread of the people. And we have to give timelines so that accomplishment can be achieved. I think this is very, very important in governing the state. And also, we have to maintain our integrity. We have to, follow due process so that we are transparent, so that people can continue to have trust in what we are doing, so that people can also participate in what we are doing. The issue of internally generated revenue is very important, but that one, people have to have trust in you that the money.
We seem to have a freeze there. If we haven't lost the signals altogether, I'd like to get some direction from my director. Do we still have Governor Ganduje on the line? All right, so whenever we're able to return to Kano, we'll pop the appropriate questions to the governor. But he's already given us a sense of his takeaways from the orientation and the workshop programs. Okay, now we understand that the connection is back. Your Excellency, Governor Ganduje, if we have, Director, is it okay with him? Ganduje, we already got a sense of your takeaways from the program that took place here in Abuja. But as you know, we have two guests here with us in the studios. There's Dr. Chris Akubas, who is the former Deputy Governor of Abia State, and there is also Ezenwa Wago, who is one of our regular guests, as Chairman Partners for Electoral Reforms. Of course, he deals not just with elections, he also deals with issues of governance. One point that has been made before we brought you on has to do with the fact that, yes, all the takeaways you have ticked off, they are important, but that there is what is often referred to as the arrogance of power at the subnational level. That governors, with due respect to you and to your colleagues, are behaving like emperors, and therefore this disposition might be an impediment ultimately to good governance. On the one hand, Ezenwa articulates the point that state governments appear not to be fully accountable to the citizens. And secondly, the arrogance of power is such that the other arms of government are virtually emasculated. And all of this can only happen for 8 years. So how then do you overcome this perception and reality that state governors, as it were, might themselves, on account of their disposition, be impediment to even the good things that you have itemized that you would like to do in your second term?
Well, of course, that depends on individual governance, because it's an issue of disposition. For myself, I'm not arrogant. I don't being intoxicated by power. I have a good human relationship, and I know that people have to understand you, and you have to come down to their own level. You have to be civilized. You have to conduct your manner according to the rules and regulations, and also you have to conduct your manner in very good human relationship. So that being power drunk certainly is not in my is not in my manner. And that one will certainly, cut you off from the people that you govern, people who like to tell you the truth. If you are arrogant, they will not be able to tell you the truth. People who are psychopaths will always come near you to tell you that you are the best, to tell you that whatever you do, you are right. So you can see that you can be misled, and that will bring confusion, and that will bring misunderstanding, and that will bring a kind of misapplying your priorities because you do not get advice from the people that you govern. So you can see that that really is a very important issue to consider. And as about transparency, that is very, very important for us to be transparent, for us to make our expenditures public, for us to make our earning public, for us to put our things according to priorities, and for most importantly is for us to be guided by what the people require and to be guided by the advice of some important people, and not to be so sensitive of criticism, because sometimes people criticize you, and some genuinely criticize you. You have to assess what they are saying. If what they are saying is correct, then you make fine-tuning. You can adjust your policies, you can adjust your approaches, and you can see that you will be on the right track.
Governor, you have exonerated yourself, from some of the elements of the comments made by one of our guests, Wago, which of course essentially amplified, before you answered the questions. But now we have the Governors Forum, which is a platform where governors meet to share ideas and of course they invent some collaborative programs that ensures good governance in your various states. Is there any kind of cohesion among the governors, that are designed to ensure good governance at state levels? Because the issue of governance at state levels, as we know it over the years, in fact since 1999, has been that in states, governors are lots. And if you have to participate in governance in any state, you have to be a yes member, including deputy governors, who must be yes members before they are sustained. We've had an experience in this country where deputy governors were impeached within 1 week, some within 2 weeks. So what's your thought on this?
I cannot. It's cutting off. Hello?
All right. Let me reframe the question again and see whether we'll be lucky enough for you to understand or for you to hear us from the Abuja end. Well, I was talking about the Governors Forum, which is a platform created by the governors since 1999 to ensure that periodically governors meet to, of course, exchange ideas on good governance. Now, we have had accusations of the fact that the governors, as we have them today, are autocratic. You have already exonerated yourself from that. But what plays out is that we still have states where governors are just the overlords. If you are not a yes member, you are not going to be part of government. What is your thought?
Well, I think that one is really psychophants. When you are working with your colleagues, you exchange ideas, and some people outside and address you and to see how states have gone, some to the extent of social states are doing very well on this particular program. Social states are being left behind in the program. So you can see that you can learn a lot from that. Coming back home, like you said, some governors, they listen to yes men, especially your deputy. Some deputy governors are impeached, But here in Kano, really, we do not have that problem except, my deputy himself and myself, that it was because the disagreement between I'm from my former governor, which is quite okay, but he thought that that dichotomy, he would not be able to work with me. He would rather go and follow his former mentor. But somewhere, somehow, you know how politics is, he abandoned his former mentor and came back to me. And since
it looks, Kieran, but we hope that we're able to get some ideas from his response to your last question. But if we do get the impression from our engineers that we can return to His Excellency the Governor of Kano, we'll do that, just 1 or 2 questions, and then we sign him off with appreciation for being part of our discussion this morning. But let's return to let's return to our other guests in the studio, Ezenwa Wagu and Dr. Chris Akumas. So Dr. Chris Akumas, of course, is a regular guest on Good Morning Nigeria, and His Excellency, former Deputy Governor of Abia State. Now, we understand that we can return to the Governor of Kano. Your Excellency, you know, we're having this break. We hope there's no sandstorm in Kano that is interfering with the signals. Otherwise, everything is all clear here with us in Abuja. Very quickly, 2 points that have also been raised in the course of this conversation. Our experience in 20 years is that the local government system has failed in Nigeria, and the blame is often placed squarely at the doorstep of state governance. In this orientation and workshop, was there any mention of how to rejuvenate, revitalize local governments and make them truly a part of the good governance agenda going forward?
I think part of the problems of local government is that of capacity, having the capacity, people that have the capacity to manage the human resources, to manage the financial resources in order to get development being effected. So that is a major problem. And also another problem is that if you decide to annex the finances of the local governments, then you can see that most of the work as the local government will be paralyzed. But when you are able to come to to have a joint projects and also to give them what they are entitled to have, then the local government will be able to execute to execute some projects. But one nagging problem also is that of they generate little revenue because of politics. They will not have the wisdom and the capacity to collect the revenues. Therefore, you can find that they are relying mainly on what comes from Abuja and what is shared between the state government and the local government. So that is another big problem which we have to look into. I think there must be an agreement on the collection of taxes so that there will be no multiple taxes by local government and state so that the state can collect the taxes, but to be shared with the local government according to local. I think local governments, they need more freedom in order. By giving them this freedom, you have to consider their capacity, and also they have to be monitored so that they don't squander money. You see, there are two sides of the story. When you say that the local government is completely independent, there was a time that local governments were
once again lost contact with the governor of Kano State, who has been making a very, very useful contributions to this conversation. But on the issue of local government, let's bring it down back here to Abuja and let Ezenwa Wagu come in there. As a matter of fact, local government system in the country has been paralyzed. That is just the right language to use because they are totally dysfunctional, in terms of being, a tier of government, as it were. And at the orientation that we had in Abuja last week, nothing really tangible was mentioned about local government, in terms of what the resource persons spoke on, those who addressed the government-elect and those re-elected. Where is Nigeria in terms of local government administration? Are we relegating the responsibilities of local government to the background? And the Governor Kandu just said that you have to be careful about the capacity of local government. What capacity is he actually talking about?
Well, His Excellency fell into the same trap that we were discussing. And sometimes when people talk about arrogance, it's not, it doesn't necessarily have to be, it could be in action. Governors got bailouts. Many of them, with a few exceptions, have not been able to show the country what they used. Many of the states are bankrupt. So in terms of that, you now look at capacity in the states itself, the capacity of those governing the states. And then you sit down and say the reason why you have to overload the local government is because you think there are capacity gaps there. The idea of democracy is that the power has to come from the people. If they think that that person does not have capacity, and many times, because they are hamstrung, I could be, at the risk of being immodest. Part of the challenge is, if you do well as a local government, the governor will think that you want to be governor. There are issues around that. There are examples of that where governors have come to say, so you are thinking, where people have shown sparks. You can't, even as a commissioner, as a deputy governor, these guys have anesthetized the ability of people to even show intelligence and spark and performance. And so the big issue is not about capacity. It's not about capacity or competence. It's about allowing institutions to function. If they function, they learn from that. And people can then hold them accountable. There is no reason why you come and deworm children. The state government will come and federal government will be deworming children in a local government. There is a program called deworming. Everybody will gather. This is the function of a local government. There is no place where you have to come and be doing sanitation and gutters and all of that clean. Those things are clearly in the Constitution that they are functions of local government. And what has happened is that just like the governors have ambushed their parties, they have also ambushed these platforms and held their resources in the name of determining for them whether they can spend those monies judiciously or not, and refuse the executive at the federal level to superintend over them. Okay, so the man gives you bailout money, tells you, please, I think you should defray your salaries. You go back to your state and say, who is it to tell you what to do?
True federalism.
And then you start talking about true federalism. But you are not going to allow that to function in another subnational level where people can exercise and grow and also learn leadership. The Constitution is clear about the age for contesting for
and qualification
for contesting for local government. 25, I think. The reason for that is that it becomes a learning curve for people to also understand governance, understand administration. So this obfuscation by the executives in the states is not helpful, and we can't hide under the issue of capacity and competence to deny autonomy to an institution that should ordinarily be the one that serves the people directly and immediately.
Thank you very much, Dr. Akumas. Yes, on local governments, how to ensure that local governments are true partners in delivering good governance.
Let me take it from an angle that I want all of us that are here looking at us and our age bracket. You are all aware of the then village headmaster NTA program, popular program. And you saw the projection of what the councillor is, what he was, and how important that councillor was. I now take it back to my own local government area. We had a local government chairman. He may not have been wonderful with giving people money, but he was wonderful with citing projects and completing them. Chief Isaac Obonna. And when it was time to campaign, we met and said, let everybody that is going to campaign put his poster on his project. That was because there was something tangible done. He was sure that in every community he could point to something. That's what we are talking about. Do we talk of our councillors today? Do they have that kind of respect and regard? If you recall, even in Kaduna, we had local government chairmen, the Zango, Kataf, and all that were wonderful. And across the country. Today, where we have local government chairmen showing forth is Lagos and probably few other places. Whether the local government exists, I'm happy His Excellency talked about issues. He's our patron because he was a deputy governor. One of those that, by the special grace of God, succeeded in becoming governor. Because of it, at a time it was like no deputy governor will ever succeed. Yes. Yeah. So I know him as a person. He's humble, he's accessible and all that. But he talked about this joint project thing. This joint project account is the undoing of the local government system. Let us allow the local government to operate. Let them make mistakes, and those that we go to prison for stealing, we go to prison, just as the governors have been called to account. Those that we show forth, I have mentioned somebody, and I went home because I know anybody back home will say, that is the truth. Anybody that will perform, will perform. Performance, we also had local governments that tarred roads. It was a competition. They tried to do some things. So, joint project account with the local government areas, who determines how is it done? Is it that local government chairmen are called to sign off things and they get their own shares and all that? So there are so many things, and today we are diversifying our economy. The success of this diversification would become more effective if the local governments are operating well, so that their duties and roles in agriculture could be, we have everybody there, the heads of agriculture, extension services, and these people are paid salaries every month doing nothing.
All right, Dr. Kumas, let's stop you there because we are short of time at this moment. Before we sign Governor Ganduje off, we'd like him to briefly, I hope you can hear me clearly, sir, briefly, talk on this issue of local government. What can be done to return local government system to the nation's governing system, how to make them effective once more? Very briefly, sir.
Okay, you see, first of all, we have to differentiate between a joint local government, state and local government account. For the state and local government account, I think the local government are entitled to get their money directly from the federal government. That is not diversion. But at the same time, there are certain issues that cannot be handled by local government alone. Especially, you see, in metropolitan issues, when you are talking of refugees, local cities can be able to handle that. So there must be a joint project between the state and the local government. It has to be financed together. Also, there are other projects that cut across the local.
Our apologies to our viewers that we're having this audio glitch and video freeze from the Skype connection to Kano. Well, otherwise, we would like to appreciate His Excellency, the Executive Governor of Kano State, Dr. Umar Abdullahi Ganduje, for being part of our conversation this morning. Thank you very much. And very quickly, Dr. Chris Akobas, your closing thoughts, very briefly, because we have to round off now.
Yes, I will take my closing thoughts on this local government issue. Talking about capacity. What is the qualification required to be president of Nigeria? G4, school cert. So, attempted, that's why I said G4. Okay? So, at the local government level, to be a councillor, what is required? And talking about recruitment process, so capacity, once the people are allowed to operate, capable hands, experienced hands will contest. They will run for that office. They will even run for, you will even see somebody who has been a minister going to be a councillor in his locality.
All right, Dr.
So
that's a situation we find in other climes like the US.
So Kebbi and Lagos are working in terms of this cooperation. The rice conversation is going on. So we want to see more states. Enugu, Anambra, and Imo can come together and see what they can do with Nkalago, for instance, cement and get it working, functional for the benefit of his people.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, Nigerians have been reacting to this conversation by way of tweets. We have a very few of them here. We'll have time to read out to you. Mike Anyako, the new and returning governors must appreciate the huge tasks ahead in governance. Celebrations must be over by now. A lot of challenges are facing us as a nation, which include security, employment, road constructions, housing, etc. The governors must find a way of increasing IGR.
Now, Dele Jack Solomon tweets, now the program recently had for newly elected and returning governors is a commendable initiative aimed at supporting them to develop key governance and management skills that will enable them transition from campaigning to managing the processes of governance.
Law Alpha C, the new governors should set a standard for the betterment of all persons despite political affiliations and avoid empowering political appointees and play games with genuine workers' wages.
Olusegun Moses tweets that the orientation has come and gone. The governors should get it clear that Nigerians can't cope with feeding bottle leaders any longer. Therefore, we have decided to take it back. Our states under their watch are unproductive. And, lastly, Laura Fassi also tweets again, said the governor should be thinking out of the box on how to pay the minimum wage.
All right, and at this point, gentlemen, we'd like to thank you for being part of the show this morning. It's been very educative and informative. As we appreciate your comments. The chairman, Partners for Electoral Reforms in Nigeria. And of course, one-time deputy governor of Abia State, Dr. Chris Akobas. Well, we always share in your experience as deputy governor all the time on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you.
So we are calling it a day today. And of course, we'd like to say thank you again for watching and goodbye for now. Enjoy your weekend. My name is Kirian Umayo.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. Good Morning Nigeria returns on Monday, 7 o'clock in the morning. Until then, have a lovely day and a sweet weekend as well.